Good evening and welcome to TABS Life Science Academy. I am Arpita Shamanto. Today we will talking about breathing and gaseous exchange in human respiratory system. It is very important chapter in human physiology. So in this chapter we will look into how the breathing system will work and how our respiratory system support in this breathing procedure. So first of all, we will focus into the structure of our respiratory system. So our respiratory system mainly starts from this nasal cavity and then it comes into this oral cavity through this pharynx and then it continues into this throat area where it is called as larynx and then it continues into the rib cage where it is called as trachea. And after this trachea is divided into two tubules which are called as bronchus, and then these bronchi enter into two balloon-like structured lungs. So in left lung it is called left bronchus and in right lung it is called right bronchus. And then inside this lung those bronchus are divided into so many small tubules which are called as bronchioles. And then at the end of these bronchioles there are so many sac-like structure which are called as alveoli. And beneath these lungs there is a membrane-like structure that is called diaphragm. And around lungs there are muscle-like structure that is called intercostal muscle, and mainly these muscles are connected to the rib cage and they will help in the relaxation and contraction procedure. So if we see that in normal condition, that means in case of exhalation this diaphragm remains as dome shaped. So we will know that how this structure of diaphragm will change with this respiration procedure. Mainly we know that in case of respiratory system there is two main procedure, that is ventilation and one is diffusion. So in case of ventilation there is mainly two procedure, one is inhalation and another one is exhalation. The membranous structure that covers this lung is called pleura, and all the structure that is alveolus, pleura remain attached with this diaphragm. So apparently it may seems to that first of all air enters into this lung and then all muscles and diaphragm become pulled, but that is not the true. Mainly in case of inhalation, as they all structures remains attached with each other, so they pulled to downwards, and then the volume of the lung becomes increased, and as a result they give the negative pressure to the alveoli, and that resulting the entering of air inside the lungs. And after that, during this exhalation procedure, automatically the air exhaled. And then this diaphragm and all the muscles like intercostal muscles, they all push the pleura upward, and that's why the remaining air becomes exhaled from this lung. So that's how the structure of the diaphragm remained changed with time to time. And in case of extra inhalation and extra exhalation procedure, there two different muscle becomes interacted. That is the external intercostal muscle and another one is internal intercostal muscle. So in case of extra inhalation procedure, the external intercostal muscle is involved. Mainly this time, that is the extra inhalation, those external intercostal muscles contract, and then the lung volume becomes increased in extra condition, and that's why the extra air enters into the lung and the extra inhalation occurs. And apparently, in case of extra exhalation, the internal intercostal muscles, they contract, and then the lung volume becomes decreased in extreme condition, and then the extra air remains out from this lung. So now if we look into the main respiratory system, now we will look into that how mainly these gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide, they mixed with our circulatory system and how they passes towards the body. So this is alveoli, and this is mainly the circulatory system where heart is at the center, and then these capillaries are near the muscles. So first of all, we all know that in case of heart there are some pulmonary arteries and some pulmonary veins. So pulmonary arteries are those type of artery, they can carry the deoxygenated blood, that means carbon dioxide reached blood. And pulmonary veins are those veins which can carry the oxygenated blood. That so when the deoxygenated blood comes out from the heart through the pulmonary artery, they comes near the alveoli, and then the carbon dioxide diffuses along the pressure, partial pressure mainly, and then they comes out from the body through the nasal cavity, and the inhalation procedure will start, and the oxygen comes into this blood, and then this oxygenated blood comes into this heart, mainly left portion, left heart portion, and then they are distributed throughout the body, and when they come into the muscle, then oxygen is diffused into this muscle, and the carbon dioxide, which mainly produced through some metabolic activities, they mixed through this blood, and then carbon dioxide mixed blood again passed into this heart, and then through the pulmonary artery those deoxygenated blood again comes near the alveoli, and then they diffuse through the alveolus and then out from the body. So that's how the mainly circulatory system and respiratory system mixed with each other. In this next slide, we will see that why this carbon dioxide and oxygen mixed with the blood and why they diffuse from one place to another place. So now we will look into the actual mechanism behind this respiration procedure. So the main factor is the partial pressure of two gases, that is the carbon dioxide and oxygen. The partial pressure of oxygen in alveolar cell is 104 millimeter Hg, and in case of capillaries the partial pressure of oxygen remains 40 millimeter of Hg. So according to the law of diffusion, this oxygen just diffused into this capillary blood, and then it passes through the pulmonary vein into this left atrium, and now the partial pressure of oxygen in capillary is become 104. So through this aorta, this oxygenated blood just distributed into the whole body through this systematic artery, and then when they come into the body tissue, the partial pressure of oxygen inside the body tissue is 95 millimeter of Hg, which is much lower than the capillary blood. So again, according to the diffusion law, this oxygen again diffused into this body tissue, and the carbon dioxide, which are mainly produced through some metabolic activities inside the body tissue, then they diffused into the capillary blood because of the partial pressure. That is, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide inside the tissue is 45 millimeter Hg, whereas the partial pressure of carbon dioxide inside the blood capillary is 40 millimeter of Hg. So according to the law of diffusion, this carbon dioxide enter into the blood capillaries, and then this deoxygenated blood just come into the right atrium, and then they pass through the pulmonary artery towards the alveoli, and inside the alveolar cell, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is again 40 millimeter of Hg, but the capillary blood is filled with the carbon dioxide, of which partial pressure is the 45 millimeter of Hg. So this carbon dioxide now passed into the alveolar cell, and then through the exhalation process, this carbon dioxide exhaled from the body. So that's how the respiratory system is mainly worked. Now we will learn about some short terms like normal breathing, extra inspiration, extra exhalation. So during our normal breathing, the volume of air, that is known as the tidal volume, is mainly 500 milliliter. But during the extra inspiration, the volume of our lung is called as inspiratory reserve volume, that is about 3 liter of air. And during extra exhalation, the volume of air is about 1.5 liter. Residual volume is the volume of air that remains inside the alveolus, which air never out from the alveolar cell. So that air is also called as residual volume, and that is about 1 liter of air. And then the vital capacity, that is the summation of tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, and also expiratory reserve volume, that is 5 liter of air. And total lung capacity is our vital capacity and also the residual volume. So in this graph you can see that this is our normal breathing time, and this normal breathing time, the volume of air is known as tidal volume. And when we inhale in extreme condition, that is the extreme or extra inhalation procedure, this type the volume of air is called the inspiratory reserve volume. And also during the extra exhalation procedure, the extra volume of air is called the expiratory reserve volume. And this all, that is the tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, and also the expiratory reserve volume, is also called as the vital capacity. And now in this time you can see that residual volume, which remain always inside our alveolus, and they all together is called total lung capacity. One more thing, that the alveolar sac is mainly made up of 3 type of cell, that type 1 alveolar cell, type 2 alveolar cell, and type 3 alveolar cells. So mainly this type 1 alveolar cell, which are mainly squamous type of cell, they mainly form this covering, outer covering of the alveolar sac. And type 2 alveolar cells are also known as the septal cell, which mainly secrete some alveolar fluid, and inside this alveolar fluid there are some surfactant molecule, which mainly dissolve the mucus, and these mucus are secreted from a special type of cell that is called mucus secretory cells. This mucus remaining inside our alveolus, and they provide our alveolus in slippery condition. And another one is type 3 alveolar cell, that is mainly the macrophages which wandering inside this alveolar cell, and they capture so many bacteria, so many viruses, and also other debris. Okay, so today here we just end this slide, and the next part of this respiration will learn into the next session, and stay tuned. Thank you.